Ladies and gentlemen, in the middle of the 20th century, there lived a man by the name of Mikhail. And this man struck fear into the hearts, the souls, the spines of the opponents that got paired against him in a chess tournament. And if there was ever a modern day embodiment of this individual, it's who I'm going to cover in today's video. Dozens of fascinating, captivating games. And his nickname is not the Magician of Riga. His nickname is the Madman. And with that, I would like to show you 3 games played by Indian Grandmaster Arjun at the recently concluded Chess Cup, a tournament held in Uzbekistan. You know, a lot of you like to watch Magnus Carlsen, a lot of you like to watch whoever you like to watch. But sit back, relax, and enjoy Arjun playing chess. Playing chess is like the Joker in Batman. I mean, this man is blowing things up left and right. We're going to kick things off with this game between him and Hans Niemann. Then I'm going to show you this game between him and Njakaboyv. And this last game between him and Theodoru it's like 2 aliens just playing a game of chess. So, first game against Hans Niemann. Here we go. Arjun opens things up with d4, and he plays just a very, normal Queen's Gambit. How is a man who is playing such a stable, solid system going to turn this into chaos? Bishop b4 from Hans Niemann is the Rogozin defense. And now we get a strange move. Normally, you get a counterpin, you get, maybe queen a4 check, forcing the knight out. No, Arjun plays this very offbeat move, pawn to a3. Why offbeat? Well, it's kind of a waste of time. Black can take this knight anyway, whenever he wants, if he wants to give away his dark squared bishop and damage the white pawn structure, right? But why would you force it instead of developing a piece? Well, Arjun just wants to make this little mental checkpoint, and then he wants to play the remainder of the game. Hans plays c5, attacking the center of the board like this. Erigaisi takes the pawn on d5, takes, and proceeds to play g3, looking to develop his bishop, and then short castle. Now, the benefit of the position for white is he has the bishop pair, so he has secured the dark squared bishop, which could become useful in the future. The benefit of the position for black is he has an extremely easy game. Castles, rook e8, pawn to h6, stopping any pins. Light squared bishop comes out, very good central control. Here we have this, bishop g2. And Hans now is like, I know that to play against the bishop pair, I want to lock down the position. So he pushes this pawn forward. Arjun now doesn't have any opportunity to open up the game. The only thing he can do is maybe play pawn to e4, but Hans is going to lock that down so fast that Arjun's never going to get to open the board. And the guy that wants to open the board is the guy that is looking for a dynamic play. Bishop g5, knight d7. Arjun goes in with the knight. He violates opening principles. He doesn't castle. First, he jumps in with the knight. He is targeting this pawn. There is a pin on this knight. And if knight takes, obviously pawn takes. This knight would be perishing. Hans plays queen a5, getting out of the pin, targeting the pawn on c3. And Arjun doesn't defend the pawn. He castles. Mikhail used to say there are 2 types of sacrifices. Correct ones and my own, or something like that. Just like, it was either, I might be butchering that. Essentially, he was saying there are maybe 3 types, good, bad, and my own, right? And yeah, I mean, Erigaisi just gives away this pawn completely. Also, black can jump in with the knight on e4. And this is what I mean by striking fear into the hearts of his opponents. Here, there is the move knight e4, opening up possibilities on this rank. But Hans plays rook e8, attacking the knight over here. Knight takes is played, knight takes forces the knight back, and now queen c2. And I told you at the beginning of the game, like, if at some point Arjun can get these pawns moving while also stabilizing the position, it's going to be really bad for black because white has more pawns, which means he has more soldiers on this side of the board. Like, if white could teleport this pawn to e5, he would have a substantial advantage. Black would really be lacking space. f4, f5 would come. So we're looking at making this move possible. Hans kicks out the bishop, understanding time is of the essence. He shuts down the move e4. Erigaisi plays this rook to b1, which is a move I can't even begin to understand, but I think he doesn't want the light squared bishop to develop. And then he plays rook to b4. Like, he puts this rook here to block the queen's attack on the pawn because he saw that the knight was coming in. Hans, meanwhile, playing very logically. Now, this rook, after blocking the queen's diagonal, and it had to be that rook because if that rook moved, this pawn would have been lost. Now the queen steps out of the way of this, and you attack the pawn on b7, you get out of the way over here. Hans plays queen a6, and Eric Geisy moves the pawn to a4, taking away more squares from the queen. He can now move the rook, he can now move the queen. Give it a couple of more moves. He inches forward, rook to b5. Hans now hits him on the other side of the board with pawn to g5, and Arjun brings the bishop back to the home square before launching his own pawn attack. Pawn to f3, knight back to f6, and now g4. What are we even looking at? Not e4, which Hans has done a very nice job shutting down. 4 pieces stare at that, but little did he know that Eric Geisy was about to launch a dark squared pawn assault on the king side with g4 and h4. Arjun voluntarily totally locks his bishop out of the game, but he is stabilizing the squares. We have rook e7, and now e3, queen f2, and h4, and Arjun has rotated the play to the other side of the board. Playing Arjun Eric Geisy in a game of chess is literally like playing an anime villain. Look at this position. Very stable, very peaceful, very demure. 10 moves later, this is the position. The rook is on b5, defended by a pawn. The queen rotated this way. h4 is on the board. He's looking to rip apart the pawns in front of your king. Hans, to his credit, doing a pretty nice job stabilizing things. Bishop d2, a6. He's kicking out the rook. The computer is always saying that black is a little bit better here. It trusts in black's position. But black is a human being. He is not stockfish. Arjun is just not taking this pawn. Like, whatever he is doing, he's keeping that tension. Finally, he opts to take. And now, Arjun plays a move that is so ridiculous. Black has done everything in his power. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces stare at a square. I mean, if there was ever a move in the history of chess that you have no business playing, it's the move that Arjun plays in this position. e4, exploding the position. Black takes on e4. Now he is destabilized here and here. Arjun takes on g5. Hans takes the second pawn. All the pawns in front of white's king are gone, right? The knight is pinned to the queen, but everything is gone here. The rooks are coming in. Arjun plays queen h4, queen d6, takes the pawn on c4. He now has a slightly maybe better position. It's looking like black is going to have to move the rook and lose his knight, but he jumps back here. Arjun grabs the rook. Hans takes back. And now the rook teleports to the other side of the board. You can't take the bishop because queen h8 is mate. But rook e4, Hans is going, every move with Arjun, he's keeping with him. Queen d7, attacking that pawn on g4. White is up a rook, but he's up a rook that literally hasn't moved. Arjun's played the whole game down a rook because that's just what an anime character does. King f2 gets out of the way of this move being a fork. Queen goes to h6. Queen goes to d6. At some point, Arjun's going to have to use the rook, right? 42 moves of this game went by. 42 moves! That rook stayed in the corner. It didn't participate in the game at all. 42 moves. Finally, he moves it to h1. He creates a triple battery to the other side of the board. Hans, meanwhile, hunting the Eric Geisy king in the center of the board from all 3 directions. And obviously, as we would have it, after some 50 moves, Arjun sacrifices a rook, but he is out of resources. And this game is going to end in a draw by perpetual check. And this is just the appetizer game. Arjun didn't win this game. But this is what he's capable of, man. Like, this is the type of stuff. Like, he just plays f3, g4, and just every pawn used, exploding the position. When Arjun plays, exploding the position is essentially what he does. Now, the next 2 games he won. So that was the first game, but these 2 games he won. This one in particular, the last game of the tournament against the Greek player Theodoru, just a ridiculous game, okay? In this game, he drew all inspiration from Tal. So this first one against Njakaboyv, by the way, Arjun every game, every single game, plays a different opening. D4, C4, E4, like that's what I love about him. Very, very flexible playing style. This was an English opening, knight to F3, black went here, knight C3, takes. And all Arjun needs is just a canvas. He will paint the rest of it with the debris of the explosion that he sets off on the board. D4, And then this is the structure that he chooses. So big pawn center, rooks in the middle, develops the bishop. And now it's like, okay, what's next here from Arjun? How is he going to set the board on fire? Brings the queen out to attack the knight, which has to be defended. This knight jumps out this way to maybe go to f5. He puts pieces on totally opposite sides of the board, and then they will meet in the middle. They will converge for the battle in the center of the board. Now he rotates the queen over to c4, where it gets attacked and pushed. Yo, who plays chess like this? This man is building parallelograms in the middle of the board. Is that a parallelogram? I'm gonna look this up. Parallelogram. Basically. I mean, this. Who plays chess like this? Nobody. Nobody plays chess like this. Brings these pieces back, and now Njakaboyv, his opponent, is like, all right, I'm going to advance and kick your knight back. I mean, I'm pushing pawns in front of my king, but now your knight can't come closer. This is all Arjun needs. He just needs his opponent to tango with him a little bit, and then what he's going to do from here, I have said it like 10 times in this video, there's going to be a moment Arjun is like, grenade, pew! D5 attacks the knight. Now, the player that wants to attack and wants to benefit from the attack needs to lock the center. The center is where every piece travels through, all right? Like a waterway, like a warm water port, if you will. Knight back to b7, queen to e2. Arjun's preparing something here. It doesn't look like he can prepare anything. Knight c4, bishop back. Dude, what? This square is completely controlled. Even if this bishop moves, you can't play f4. Game Review literally gives f4 a double question mark because it takes the advantage from equal to minus 0.6, minus 0.7, all right? Stockfish is like, this doesn't work. Arjun's like, I'm just ripping open the position so I can put my bishop here and point it at your king. He just sacrifices a pawn, moves the bishop to this diagonal. Now this king is open. And you know what Arjun planned here? How he's going to plan to detonate an attack on this side of the board? Oh yeah, obviously, king h1. Opens up the position, sacrifices a pawn, rook g1 is incoming with a queen, a potential bishop, a potential king. All Arjun has to do is go bishop f3 and rook g1. And your heart starts pounding with black. You're like, And nowadays, the engine has taken some of the mystique out because it's like, well, obviously you go here and then here and then here and then everything's just fine. But as a human, it's not easy to play this position. Queen back to f1. Black now essentially has to leave the center locked exactly as it is and play like h5, bishop g7, glue the king side as shut as possible. And I actually think there's some moments here. White can play h3, and black doesn't even have to move the knight. Like, he can just leave the bishop there, the bishop, because if pawn takes, actually, the computer evaluates these two pawns as very strong, protecting the king, and you even have an attack potentially brewing over here. In the game, though, Njakaboyv tries to go c6, and after pawn takes c6, tries to win the pawn back, and also maybe gain some attack on the center and on the king side, and Arjun he just shuts this down so fast. He goes bishop f3. Black tries to glue the position shut now. Arjun plays rook b2. Again, a rook teleporting to the other side of the board, just like in all his games. Locks the center shut completely. The pawn is also protected now, which is going to be a major problem. And with black, you are not stopping the cannon that is about to be pointed down the g-file. It all works out in the end. He goes for a queen trade. The queen steps back. There will not be a queen trade. The knight jumps into the black position, and suddenly that pawn that his opponent gave him, searching for counterplay, is right there. Rook f3 is collapsing, and in this position, black just resigned. He resigned the game because now he's down a pawn, and he is just going to get completely blasted on this open g-file. Arjun had no reason to play the move f4. Absolutely not at all. I don't think there is a single player in the world top 10 that in this position would play the move f4. I don't think there's a single player in the world top 50 would play f4. And Arjun looks at this position and is like, yes, I thought f4 was quite an interesting move, because he's very soft-spoken, but he carries a bazooka on his shoulder. Like, f4 for absolutely no reason. Nobody can explain the move f4, but he just plays it, rips apart the board. And that takes me to this last game, okay? Because this is the last round of a tournament. And, you know, the opponent plays a Petrov. Theodoru's ready for the event to be over. He's ready to go enjoy some plov. You know, they're in Tashkent. You got to try the local delicacies. We're gonna get a pretty boring Petrov. This is one of the most symmetrical lines in the history of the Petrov. But Arjun's sitting at the board with an explosive device, just like ready to go at any moment. So he plays bishop d3, knight c6. This game is so crazy. This game is so crazy. If you're still here, I appreciate it. The average watch time of the videos is like 10 minutes, so most people left. Average. You're still here. And this is gonna be quite the game. So castles, bishop g4. By the way, all these games were played like in the span of a week. Arjun does not have a social battery that he needs to recover, or a chess battery that he needs to recover. Rook e1, bishop e7. Everyone's developing some pieces. c3, black plays f5. This is actually a very dynamic line, but very good line. White played very passively, black plays aggressive, pinning the knight to the queen, stabilizing the knight with some pawns. Kind of an unpleasant position. Queen b3, hitting the pawn on b7, hitting the pawn on d5, actually threatening to take the pawn there. Black just castles. I think this is pretty well-known stuff. I think you can't take this pawn on b7. It's well-known. So the point is that in this position, if black were to take on f3, he would just be hanging his own knight. But if the queen goes, you actually can do this because the king is so open. So it would be like rook b8, and then it would be like rook b6. Oh, sorry, the knight was hanging. So it'd be like queen takes, rook b6, queen a4, and then like you would just get mated, basically. Like I think it's just well known that white's king is simply too weak in this position. Okay, that doesn't happen. Arjun is still playing a very solid structure. Knight bd2, knight a5 attacks the queen, brings it back. I told you, Theodoru's ready for a draw. So queen c2, knight a5, queen c2, knight c6. A lot of players would say, last round of the tournament, queen b3, let's make a draw, let's go enjoy some food together. Arjun's like, no, b4. So plays a move which advances the pawns, creates weaknesses in the white position, looks to kick away the knight and gain control of e5. And if white gets a knight to e5 and a pawn to f3 and the knight comes back to protect again, white is going to be much better. I mean, it's all about getting rid of this central blockade. a6 is played from Theodoru. Arjun plays rook b1. And, it looks like you got to stop b5. At the same time, it looks like white probably won't go b5 because he needs a pawn on b5. He wants to play a4, then b5. So Theodoru's like, okay, I can play b5, or I can target this king, which looks like a better move, and I'm going to prepare my queen potentially moving there. And Gotham's going to rub his nose because the allergies are just getting to him. And Arjun here, of course, does not prepare the move at b5 with a4. He just plays b5. And for the second time in this video, he has a freaking rook on the b5 square. This man must hold the world record for the amount of times his rook has been on b5. A white rook being on b5 in a chess game, statistically speaking, if you ran an algorithm, which is really not that difficult, this is a thing for the technologically inclined. If you downloaded a sample size of like every chess game played by every grandmaster ever, because lower rated players, the rook will be on b5 a lot. How many times did a white rook end up on the b5 square? And then how many times did the white rook end up on the b5 square where the total material sum on the board was like above something? Okay, because obviously in an endgame, a rook can end up here. But if there's like a certain threshold of material on the board, the rook doesn't go to b5. Probably not. Arjun Ervagaisi must hold the world record. He just must. One of you can do this. I have a lot of viewers. Some of you, somebody's going to comment. Let's make it the top comment. He must hold the record. I would be absolutely fascinated. King h8. So you can't take really either of these pawns. If you take the pawn on b7, it looks a little bit dangerous because black is going to get a queen here, probably chop this down. And if you take on d5, you simply lose a rook. Bishop takes h2, which apparently is not even the right move. Okay, it is, but you have to take on d2 first. Knight takes d2, followed by bishop takes h2. So Arjun plays h3. He attacks the bishop. And Theodoru decides that he wants to challenge the modern-day Mikhail Tal, which is bold, very bold. He can, of course, just go back with the bishop and mind his own business, but instead, he takes on d2. So he removes the central blockading piece because white now has a very difficult decision. What does he take this with? If he takes with one of these, the knight is going to be taken, opening up the king, so he has to do this. He has to take a step backwards, and once again, Theodoru can move back with the bishop and mind his own business. Instead, he plays queen h4. You can't take this because queen h2 and pawn takes and all this would be very vicious, but Arjun brings a piece back to f1, disallows a sacrifice, and is like, okay, come and get me. You want to have some fun? You want to have some fun? Let's do it. Theodoru is going to try to be the Batman to the Joker in this game. Now, the top computer line here is wicked. It is black just playing bishop h2. And if white takes, all black does is take a pawn. There's not a check, there's nothing. But because the rook is hanging, and because the king is so weak, this is apparently very good for black. If white then moves the rook, black can play f4, giving up a second bishop. 2 bishops down for 1 pawn, and then pawn to f3! With no clear threat, by the way. There's no threat. If knight takes, you lose the queen, but there's no clear threat. But there actually is a threat. Like, let's say white goes rook b7, queen h4, and pawn mate! What? There's just a threat of a pawn mate in the middle of the board. So, had this happened, there needed to be king h3 running with the king, and then there's knight d8 attacking the rook, and the rook has to stick around. Because if the rook goes, like, too far, let's say, like, if it goes rook a, there's rook h6, rook h6! So Theodoru here, in this position, could have been the hero of the tournament and just threw the bishop, queen f2, and just gave away 2 pieces. Oftentimes, in these insane positions, there's these crazy lines. I told you, I mean, you really should have stuck around, right? This is nuts. Now, in the middle of all of this, Arjun just takes a pawn. He's looking at the board. He thinks for 20 minutes. He's like, free? It's just a free pawn. I could just take it. Free pawn. What are you going to do? Now with black, you're like, yo, did he just really take a free pawn in the middle of all that? f4. Still sacrificing the bishop. Because if you take the bishop, what exactly is the follow-up? Now, with white, you would love to play like f3, but then you would lose your rook. You would love to play knight f3, but then he's just going to take, and this is terrible. So Arjun takes the bishop. White now is up a piece. Black threatens checkmate. This is mate. What do you do with white? If you play g3, that's not going to stop anything. In fact, the position is so ridiculous. The best move is not to sack the bishop. It's to sack the queen. Because if takes f2 and you make a new queen, and if this, you can even promote to a knight and fork the king and the queen. So the best move is that. Now, that's not going to happen. We get knight takes f3, but if knight takes f3, Theodoru sacrifices the rook. Queen h2 is now mate again. So how do you get out of this position? I mean, there is just a direct line here. If g3, you're going to sack everything. Oh, obviously, the way you survive checkmate is by sacrificing the rook back. There's 2 hanging rooks. Rook e5. So rook f3 is there. Rook e5 is there. You disconnect this. Now, if bishop takes and d takes, which is what happens in the game, because there was nothing else. See, with black, you couldn't leave the position. You're down material, right? You're down 2 pawns, and if you just walk away, my counterattack is going to be very, very, very vicious. So rook e5 takes. Now, material count is actually equal. It is a bishop and 2 pawns for a rook. Bishop and 2 pawns for a rook, okay? How do you even navigate a position like this? This rook is just hanging, so he's got to return it back to the home square. Okay, so now we enter a phase of the game that's like, we have chaos in front of us. Black tried to absolutely destroy white. It didn't work. There's a queen hanging around. There's a rook pressuring. White can still take the pawn on c7. By the way, Arjun just taking this was genius in retrospect. Now what? What do you do with all of your pieces? Okay. Obviously, first, you protect your pawns. You centralize your queen. By the way, top move of the computer. Knight g6, mistake. It was better for black to go to c6. Why? Like, why would you go to c6 if this was under attack? Oh, because you can threaten to take the pawn because queen f2 is there. So if knight c6 was... oh my god. Too much yelling. Knight c6 was apparently a better move because the knight is more mobile on the c6 square than on the g6 square. Knight g6 was the move played in the game. And in this position, Arjun now pushes the pawn to attack the queen. The queen goes back to e7. And he has to push another pawn in front of his king. So the king is getting opened up, but these pawns wall out this knight. I actually think, had he gone this way, it would have been very different because the knight would have stayed active. So it would have been king h2 and then d4, and the knight would have just been in a stronger position overall. I think Theodoru thought, well, the knight is here and it's around, the king, but Erigaisi is, he's so clever. He's like, I actually think this knight is out of the game now. Now, rook b8. Theodoru guarantees Arjun loses one of his attacking pieces. All Arjun has now is a queen, 2 bishops, and some pawns. Arjun goes queen d3. Targets the pawn on d5. Maybe bishop e3 is coming. Also prevents rook b1. Theodoru plays pawn to c6, defending the pawn, looking to potentially maneuver the queen that way. I mean, he needed to defend the pawn somehow. He goes here. Bishop e3 activates the bishop. Now, one of the remaining plans for white is quite simply to push this pawn. Because if this pawn were there, this would be game over. Black would be lost. The pawn is just way too strong. Black has a limited amount of time to conjure up some sort of counterplay. The other plan for white is to advance these pawns. Because not only are you promoting, you are also potentially weakening the king with f5, f6. So, queen a3. Bishop d4. Pawn's been given away. He's giving away the pawn on a2. He wants to play e6, f5, etc. Queen b2, a little bit of a mysterious move. I think Theodoru spent 17 minutes on this move, and he's drowning in the water polo fight that is with, Erigaisi. I feel like playing Erigaisi is like literally wrestling a human in a swimming pool, okay? e6. This is going to raise your heart rate right here. Rook a8. Theodoru wants rook a2 and queen h2 mate. Can he get it? Arjun plays c4, exploding the position, attacking the queen. D takes c4. Queen c4, the queen is still under attack. You probably cannot trade queens with me. Probably this is just bad. Queen d2, it's still there. That's still mate. Arjun pushes the pawn forward. The final piece to move in the white position. Every piece in white's position has moved. Every pawn got a chance to move. Every queen got a chance to move. Every bishop got a chance to move. Knight back to e7. Arjun removes the knight as the blockader of the pawn. The knight comes here. Now Arjun brings the bishop back to protect the king because he creates this as an attack. Queen c3 looking for a trade of queens. Arjun re-centralizes the queen on e4. And this might have been his worst move of the game. Somewhere here, actually trading the queen was winning for white because you have a5. And if rook a5, you have bishop e1. And if something like rook a3, your pawn just promotes. So Arjun had to trade the queen and go a5, and that apparently was winning as the bishops, like I said, were escorting the pawn to the other side of the board. But Theodoru thinks that a queen trade is still fine. Arjun doesn't miss a second chance. a5, a6, e7. You can't take the pawn on a6 because I'm just going to promote. And the bishops carve up the position. They win the game. Bishop c5, bishop a6, and Theodoru resigns. 2 bishops and 2 pawns terrorizing the black position. This is defended. This is defended. Bishop e7 is coming. a8 is promoting. Theodoru resigns. What a freaking game that was. I mean, this man, his chess is crazy. I love watching his games in the tournament, win or lose. His playing style is not conducive to being 2,800. He is going to lose a ton of games playing like this. He's going to win a ton of games playing like this. But he is the modern day hero that we need. I'm not sure that we deserve him. That's all I have for you today. As always, you know where to find me. A lot of stuff is happening right now. The World Cup is going on Chessly. We are doing a World Cup challenge, my educational platform. You can test it out. Second book is on the way. Europe tour is in 4 months. Can't wait. Shout out to Arjun Erigaisi, and I'll see you in the next video. Get out of here.